All right, so I stopped in the shade real quick because it is a little warm out right now, and as you can see, there's nary a cloud in the sky. It is about 10:30 in the morning on August 19th, 2025. I've already gone about 2.5 miles. You guys didn't need to see like a lot of that to begin with, but I went ahead and turned everything on and started recording because I am going to make a quick detour over here and run through that cemetery again. Oops, lots of bicyclists. I look like a old man bicycle group, and then at the rear it was, yeah, honey, you can come along. It's just funny because we've all been there. Can I come on your boys trip? Sure. Can I do this with you and the guys? Sure. My girlfriends won't do this. All right, you can come along. We've all been there. Yeah, not sure why somebody left a stack of tires there. That person is probably living out of their car. This person might be living out of that van. That's an RV. Oops. There's no sidewalk here. And I would ride over here in this dirt, but I don't know what's in that dirt. So, for example, I don't know if there's nails or screws or random bits of metal or glass or anything that can tear into these tires. Alright, so the other day we kind of did a perimeter check. We don't need to do a perimeter check again. And as you can see, now that I'm facing kind of southwest, you can see some clouds there. So we're just kind of going to run through. A sign back there said no filming, photography, photo shoots, etc. without approval. Whoops. That's okay. I'm not filming anybody's name or any family plots or anything. I was less concerned with the filming aspect because I was actually thinking I need a day where it's a little overcast to come through here with my camera and tripod to get some decent photos. But I was less concerned with that than I was with, riding a bicycle through here. I thought for certain, an employee would flag me down and say, hey, you can't come through here on a bicycle. So I'm on some softer sand here. These tires are eating it up like there's nothing. I think that said born in 1840. Yeah, this is an old section, post-Civil War. I see a lot of 1860s and a lot of 1870s. So, people who moved out west for fame, fortune, or to get away from, freed black slaves and the New World Order. Let's see. I don't want to get too close to the front office only because, again, I'm more concerned with them saying something about me riding a bike. But I have walked through here with a camera before. That was 1832. 1812, that might be the oldest. Because I think yesterday I saw an 1820. So yeah, some old ghosts here. Or some old people. 1847. And I'm looking at birth years, not death years. I was 18, maybe 19 or something. It was pretty faded. So, we'll go this way. Got some 1900s, 1859. And some where the prints or the etchings are too small for me to see as I'm going past. 1860, 1837. Now, if you're on the East Coast or even the Midwest, you're thinking, oh, that's not that old. If you're in Europe, you're definitely thinking, oh, that's not that old. But if I'm out west here in Colorado, these are actually pretty old. Yes, the Native Americans, depending on the particular tribe or whatever, had things that they did with their bodies of the past, whether it was burial or burned or leaving for nature or whatever. I'm not sure. There's so many different tribes and so many different nations that I just don't know because it's not my area of expertise. But as far as people of European or Old World descent, that's actually kind of cool. Where that tree was growing up around it. That may be one to come back and get a picture of on if we ever have like a really foggy day or something. We don't have a lot of fog in Colorado because it's so dry here. I say that, and the Coloradans will come out of the woodwork and be like, oh, it gets foggy here. Okay, the 1 or 2 times a decade it gets foggy does not mean it gets foggy here. When I'm talking about fog, I'm talking about Florida or Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana fog. Where it's, England, where it's so incredibly thick that you can't see through it. You can't go more than a few steps at a time because you just don't know what's in front of you. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. Some people over there on the trail again. Looks like somebody left some food by the gate. That's weird. There's a ghost story in there for you. Ghost woke up, decided it was hungry, and ordered food. And they couldn't get in, so they left the food at the gate, thinking it was from an employee. Turns out the ghosts were just hungry. Now, I'm saying this all in jest. I don't actually believe in ghosts. So, there's that. And I've said that on other videos before. Usually, when I'm looking at ghost stuff or paranormal stuff. Oh. That car with that's probably a homeless person was a girl. Or a woman. Yeah, I got called out one time for referring to women as girls. I had a girl get super mad at me. And I'm like, girls refer to themselves as girls all the time. But when I do it, it's suddenly a bad thing. Yeah. Yeah. Anywho. She's like, how would you feel if I called you a boy? And I'm like, I don't care. Yeah, I really don't care. But as for ghosts, yeah. I've been in some places that were supposedly haunted. Nothing. No noises, sounds, shadows, anything like that cannot be explained. So that sign says I've only been a mile. Now I don't know where that starts from, but let's get past this. My odometer says I've been 4.2 miles. So maybe the other day when I turned around at the 7-mile marker, maybe I was actually 10 miles into the ride. Who knows? I just learned how to reset the trip odometer on here because according to the manual, I don't think they'd updated their manual, but they did update the software. Okay, I don't know. I'm not going to go as far today as I normally do because I started off this morning with 3 battery tick marks out of 5, and I'm already at 2. And this bike's too damn heavy to pedal uphill, so I might be turning around here shortly. Just to make sure that I get back and still have some power left. But, yeah, I've never seen anything that I could definitively say was paranormal. Even if you watch paranormal videos on YouTube or the TV shows or movies or whatever, a lot of it is easily faked. Whether through somebody's over here collecting garbage or dumping garbage. Oh no, he's definitely dumping garbage. Oops. Ugh. I don't know. Well, maybe that's their RV and they lost it. Who knows? So I'm actually going to use this as a turnaround point just because, again, I don't know how much battery I have left. And if it's not raining later, I'll try to get out and get another ride in closer to dusk. Because I have not used the headlight on this bike yet. And I'd like to see how bright it is at dark. So, yeah, so maybe they're getting stuff out, maybe they're putting stuff in. I don't know. But, yeah. So anywho, as I was saying, most of the time, practical effects can explain most quote-unquote hauntings. 9 times out of 10, or 9.5 times out of 10, it's psychological. It's either naivete, or it's ignorance, or just belief systems. So for example, if you're a very religious person and you believe in spirits and stuff, and you hear a random noise or don't remember putting your keys down on the kitchen counter or something, then you're gonna, you turn around and blame it on a spirit. Or if you suffer from high levels of anxiety, most hauntings can be explained by this. And then there's the fake hauntings. The ones where people are like, oh my god, it's a noise, blah, blah, blah. String is a good thing. Notice they never pan around the room when they show these videos to you. If they do pan around the room, they don't look behind the couch or through the other doorway or whatever the case may be. Because that's where their partner is pulling a string. And if you notice, all the moving furniture or moving whatever always moves in a way that somebody can pull the string. For example, if it's a book on a bookcase. So many people out today. It's a Tuesday, for crying out loud. But yeah, if it's like a book or a picture frame or something on a bookcase, it always pulls out or pulls to the side where somebody could be off camera pulling it. It never falls backwards where it's a little harder to, do that or mimic that. It never floats. And if it does, it swings a little. I wonder if I should go talk to her. The homeless woman over there. see if she's okay. The problem with it is, I'm nice. I've met plenty of homeless people over the last few years by just walking up and saying, hey, are you okay? Do you need help or whatever? Like, I'll buy you some food. I don't have my wallet on me right now, but I'll buy you a meal at a fast food place or get you some granola bars or something at a store if there's a store nearby. I will help in any way that I can. But some of those people, they can get a little touchy, and I get it, because they, it's a sense of loss, combating with pride. So, things got so incredibly bad. Sorry, I didn't want to talk next to that dude. And I was looking to see if he had earbuds in or anything. But, things got so incredibly bad that you're resorting to living in your vehicle, or living in a tent under a tree, or living under a bridge or whatever. You feel, you haven't, if you're new to it anyway, you haven't come to the realization yet. You haven't pushed aside your pride and ego yet. You still think it's not real. Or how can this happen to me? And it's tough. I get it. I met a woman like 2.5 years ago. We're still friends. Although, she lived in her Jeep. She was in her Jeep for about a week when I met her. And met her at a laundromat. And she, we just started talking, and I finally asked her, because I saw the signs. They're easy to see once you know what to look for. So I started, I just asked her flat out. I said, are you in your vehicle? And she looked and she said, yeah. And I said, are you okay? And she goes, yeah, I'm fine. And I said, well, here, take my number. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, I might be able to help you with them, give you advice, etc. More importantly, I know people in this area that are doing van life or just living in their cars out of choice or whatever, that, you can go to for help or advice or whatever if you need it. If, something happens or something comes up that you need this kind of help. And I did. I introduced her to a couple of people, and she introduced me to a couple of people, and people she introduced me to were a little cray-cray. But, everybody who lives that lifestyle has a little something wrong with them, especially if they chose it. Now, I did tell her when I met her, because she was in a little Jeep Liberty, and I said, I met her in March, so it was still cold at night, but it wasn't freezing, dropping down into the 30s or high 20s or whatever. Easily, you can live through that with a sleeping bag or a blanket or whatever. You don't need, a heater or anything at that point. When I worked with her, I asked her if she was just doing it to save money for the summer, like, let go of a lease or moved out of a boyfriend's house or whatever, and you're just like, you know what, I'm going to live in my car this summer and kind of save up some money. If she was just doing that, I was like, yeah, that's fine, whatever, save some money, do what you got to do. But if she was planning on doing it full time, like year-round full time, then I advised her she was going to need a better vehicle, preferably something with four-wheel drive. Doesn't necessarily have to be four-wheel drive, but preferably, just because if you are living in your vehicle and it is snowing 10, 12, 20 inches, you need to be able to move. Because when you live that lifestyle, you have to drive somewhere to take a shower. You have to drive somewhere to take a dump. You have to drive somewhere to get food. That guy had a roll of what looked like clothes. I don't know if he was wrapping it up or unwrapping it. It was weird though. Because I did double check to make sure it wasn't like body shaped, but it was definitely packs of clothes. But yeah, I mean, there's just, and you're going to want to, and I told her, I said, and, if you're going to do it full time, you're going to want a little bit more room. So a van or a larger SUV, something like that, if it is snowing and you have to stay inside all day, you don't feel cramped. If it's raining and you have to stay inside all day, you don't feel cramped. So it took her a few months, but she ended up buying a van, and she's been happy. She actually thanks me all the time that I convinced her to buy the van. Now, it was actually a really good deal. This particular van, make and model, she was looking at a different make and model, but I showed her the repair statistics of that make and model, and she was like, I don't want to buy a lemon. And I said, exactly, that's why I'm showing you. But this van over here, if you look at the used ones, they're averaging, like the used ones are averaging 250, 300,000 miles. They're not even like selling them because they're broken. They're just selling them because they're old and they want new ones. The one she ended up buying had like 80,000 miles on it. So I told her, I said, yeah, you have a good 10 years left on this engine and transmission at least, as long as you take care of it. And she, but it looked like somebody had bought it and built out the inside already. Now, it was a home job. It wasn't professionally done, but it looks like somebody bought it and did that specifically to travel across the country. And it looks like they probably got as far as Colorado and decided they didn't like living that life anymore. Because, the guy at the dealership told her that the car came from the Northeast somewhere. So, it came with a built-in bed and cabinets and stuff like that already, which was nice. Good for her, because she didn't have to do all that. More importantly, she didn't ask me to do it for her. And that happens a lot. So, yeah, it can be done. And people make a life at it. I know a guy that has been doing it for about 6 or 7 years now, and he chose it. His whole thing was he got sick. He was a realtor who specialized in horse property, so large acreage properties, and he was making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And then he got injured to where he could barely stand, and he could no longer maintain his horse property. So he told his live-in girlfriend at the time, hey, look, I cannot maintain this property anymore. I can't do the work around the property, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to have to sell it. And according to him, that's when she decided to dump him, which was fair. He's under the impression she used him for his property, and when he no longer had it, she moved on. Which I kind of agree with. And then he moved into an apartment. Well, the apartment he was renting, while it wasn't anything special, I've been to those apartments. He said he was paying like $2,100 a month for like 560 square feet. And he thought that was ridiculous, and I kind of agree with him. He said, yeah, he goes, so I decided to do this instead. Because at least, it may be a little uncomfortable, it may be trying at times, but at least I'm not spending that much money on an apartment that all I'm doing is sleeping in and watching TV in. And I was like, exactly. It's like, I had that conversation with my nephew a couple of whiles ago when I was down in Florida. He asked me about where I live, and I said, well, I live in like a little studio apartment. And he goes, what's that? Because he didn't know. Keep in mind, my brother lives in a 6,000 square foot house with a pool and acreage. So his kids don't really know any different. Like their bedrooms, the kids' bedrooms are larger than my place. So fast forward, hey, I got a little battery left. we're talking, I mentioned, studio. My mom's sitting right there because she's been dying to ask me where I'm living for a long time. And he goes, what's that? And I said, well, it's basically, pardon me, basically a bedroom with a little kitchenette and a bathroom. And he's like, what? How can you live like that? And I was like, well, how much space do you need? You don't need that much space to watch TV. You don't need that much space to sleep. And you don't need that much space to take a shower or a nap or anything. So what else do you want? Now, normally I'd kick off the camera by now, so you don't see where I'm going, but I'm still talking. So I'll just keep recording. But yeah, so you just realize that. You wake up one day and you realize, how much space do I need? When I used to own my house, it wasn't a large house. Now I got something in my throat. But it was. Whew. Oh. I was like, yeah, the bike got up and took off. Apparently I accidentally put it in 4. Which is fine, I'm gonna go back to 4. Yeah. I don't know what the hell happened, but it feels like I can't breathe all of a sudden. So, anywho, I used to own a house, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. It was perfectly fine. But then I realized over the years, I didn't really need that much space. I never put anything in the 2-bedroom, the 2 spare bedrooms. I never had any kids. I did have, the occasional roommate. But if I would have bought a smaller house, I wouldn't have needed a roommate. Yeah, I really didn't need that much room. And I realized I was spending a majority of my time at home in the master bedroom. Because I had a TV in there. That's where my desk was, so I could get some work done. And that's where I slept. So I'd go downstairs to leave the house or to cook, and that was about it. Except in the summer times. In the summer times, I did spend more time downstairs, just because it was cooler. But yeah, I was like, I don't really need this much space. So ever since I moved, I haven't really cared about how much space I had. Whether it was a small apartment, a small condo, or renting a room or a basement apartment or something somewhere. I had to wave to that dude because I think he was waiting on me. He might not have been though. So yeah. Some people just don't need space. I'd rather be outside doing this, and I don't need a giant house to be outside to do this. Now, that being said, I'm fine with living in a small house if I have a lot of space. So even like where I lived, it was a town, where I owned my house, it was a townhouse, a 3-bedroom, 3-bath townhouse. 1,600 square feet. And I really enjoyed it. But I also lived across the street from the state park. And a couple of blocks down another street was a municipal park. And my neighborhood had a lot of green space. Okay, so I'm definitely not going to take you guys any further than this. But I will run up this street real quick because I'm still talking. But yeah. They have like no parking signs everywhere, and there's cars parked here. No parking, 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. So they don't want overnight parking, I guess. I don't know if it's because they're trying to, keep van lifers and homeless people away from parking their cars here overnight, or if it's for semi-trucks. Because obviously there's a lot of businesses here to the right-hand side, so And the interstate's right behind me. So I don't know if they were worried about like semi-trucks parked over here humming all night long or taking up space or whatever. But yeah. So yeah, in the end, I mean, you don't really need a lot of space if you are an active person. But if you're a shut-in, if you're one of those people who doesn't go anywhere or do anything, then yeah, maybe you want a little bit more indoor space. That's one of the things, like you can see the houses over to the left here. They're all small houses. They're post-World War II houses. You know, quick up, you know, first houses for families, that kind of thing. And I grew up in a house, you know, like the size of that one that I just passed. You know, but we had a yard. We were outside all the time. But you see some of these newer neighborhoods, and you know, it's these giant McMansions with tiny yards. Like, you know, by law they have to have like 8 feet between the house and the fence, and that's all you get all the way around the house, or on 3 sides anyway. And people are happy like that because they have these giant houses. They don't have to go outside. You know, they can play up. They can be upstairs while their kids play downstairs, etc. That kind of thing. All right, so this is where I'm actually going to turn around and start heading back to where I live. So I'm not going to take you with me. But yeah, you know, you just question yourself: how much space do you need? Maybe you have. Maybe you just like decorating, and so you like having a big house. Or maybe you like having separate rooms for separate things. You know, your sleeping room, your project room, your writing room, your work room, whatever. You know, maybe you have a family and you need the space. Well, remember, for a vast majority of human history, we have lived in small places, huts, tiny, tiny, tiny houses. Like things, like these tiny houses across the street here, you know, in modern day America, those are considered tiny, small homes. You know, 100 years ago, those would have been considered luxury, you know, upper middle class. So, you know, keep in mind, there's context too. Like we have never until modern times lived in giant McMansions. Even castles and stuff, you know, there were dozens of people that lived in them. You know, because it takes that many people to keep it running. So yeah, you know, me personally, I don't need a giant house. I need a bedroom, maybe a living room, a kitchen, and a bathroom. That's it. Everything else I'm happy to do outside, unless it's, you know, one of those weeks where it's, you know, sub-zero and snows 3 feet or rains 2 inches a day or something. Then it's kind of annoying being stuck inside something small, but that's when you leave. That's when you go to a movie or go walk around a mall, or in my case, I'll go walk around Costco and sample. It doesn't bother me a bit. But anywho, I'm going to turn this off. Thanks for coming on the trip, and I will try and get another ride in later today if these clouds come in and if it gets a little cooler, because I'm not going to be able to ride tomorrow or Thursday. So Friday or Saturday might be the next ride I get in if I don't get an afternoon one in. And again, the only reason I'm stopping today is because the battery's almost out and I didn't want to get stuck anywhere. But I'm at 10 miles for the day so far, so it's all good. All right, thanks for coming along, and I'll talk to you guys later.